best way to learn a new programming language or framework is to build something with it. And that's why I try to encourage on my channel here practical coding skills that will let you actually build real web applications that you can use yourself, playing around with and experimenting with them as you go. And that's honestly the best way to learn coding. And the one project that basically every web development course and bootcamp starts with is a simple to-do list app. And that's what I'm going to run through in this video. We're going to be building this. This has a list of to-do items that you can add things to like this. And it's using this little text box here as an input. This is going to be built in React using Typescript, and the build tool is going to be Vite. Now I'm going to be running through this build very, very quickly, so feel free to pause this video if you need to, but I try to keep all of the unnecessary stuff out of this and just focus on the code and how that code contributes to the thing that we're building. So in that vein, let's dive straight in and create a new Vite application on the command line with npm create vite at latest. So once we've done that, it boilerplates a new Vite application, and you'll see there's a bunch of files in this source directory here. And this is the directory that we're going to be building our application in. I've deleted everything out of app.tsx, so we've got a clean slate. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create some types in TypeScript for our to-do items. So create a new file called types.ts. And in here, I'm going to export a type called to-do item. That's going to have an ID, some text, and a flag called isCompleted. So that's the type that encapsulates one item in our to-do list. The next, I'm going to create a component that shows this to-do item in React. So I'll create a new file called todo.tsx, and in here we're going to import React, and we're going to import our to-do item from that types.ts file. So in here, let's create props for our type. So it's going to take the to-do item as an object into it, and it's going to have a function on here that toggles that to-do on and off. Then we can export a component, pass the props into our component, and we're going to be returning a list item that just shows the text on our to-do item. So this line here, this is coming from the to-do item that we declared over here, so our text property. So we're going to render multiple versions of this to-do component as list items inside a list, and that's going to essentially be our to-do list. Now we need a click event handler on this so that when you click it, it marks the to-do item as either done or undone. So if I go into this li class, li opening thing here, add an onClick handler, and that's just going to call props.toggleToDo with the ID of the to-do item. Let's put some styling in here as well. So we're going to say here that if the to-do item is completed, then it's going to have this class here applied to it, line through. If it's not completed, then it's going to have a class called none. And we can do that in CSS later on. We're going to end up with an li component with either a line through class or a none class on it, which will help us style it with CSS. Great, now let's go and use this to-do item component in our actual app. So first, let's create a blank application in here. We're going to use useState, and we're going to call some CSS from this CSS file I've got over here, which at the minute is empty, but we'll add some basic styles in a bit. Now let's create our component, call it app, and we'll export that from our file. So this is just a basic app component that's going to be rendered inside our Vite application. Now inside our application, we're going to need access to our to-do component, so we'll import that. And we're also going to need access to the to-do item type, so let's import that as well. And then let's go ahead and start giving some state to our component. So if I create a list of to-dos using the useState hook in React, and then I'm also going to have an input value so that as you're typing, you've got some variable to put the value that you're typing in. So if I go back to the demo for a second, you can see, as I'm typing in here, I need to store the value that you're typing into this text box so that we can add it into our to-dos later on. So that's what's going to be an input here. Now let's create a couple of inline functions in here. So we're going to create a function called add to-do, and that's going to take some text and it's going to turn it into a to-do item. So we're going to create a new to-do item. We're going to give it a random ID. I'm just going to use the current date. Pass the text in, and its initial state is going to be isCompleted false. So this is creating a new to-do item object out of our text. We're going to create another one, which is going to be toggle to do. This is going to get passed into our to-do item component, and this is going to take the ID, and it's basically going to create a new version of the to-dos list with that version toggled. So we're going to say, create a new version of the array. If it's the same item, then flip that to-do.isCompleted flag and return the items there. So we're calling set to-dos here to update our new to-dos array into our useState hook. And this is completed. You can see I'm using the not sign here. So it's basically saying do the opposite of what it currently is. So if to-do.isCompleted is true, then this is going to set it to false. So these are the two functions we need. Now we can go ahead and create the actual component. Oh, one thing that we do need to do is add in here that when you add a new to-do, we need to set the new to-dos array to the existing array plus append this new item onto the end of it. Okay, so let's create the actual component. So I'm going to return some HTML here, give it a title, my to-do list, and an input box, which is going to be the input object that we're typing in for a new to-do item. When you change that, we're going to set the input for that. And then there's a button that says add this now, which is going to pass into our add to do function up the top. Then inside our UL, we're going to map our to do items using this to do component that we created before. Great. Okay, so there's a component, there's the list of items, and each item is coming from this list of to-dos, which is inside our useState hook at the top. So this is basically all we need to do for the function of our to-do list. Let's create some very basic styles in here as well. I'm just going to style this using the name of the components. So any main object with a button inside it is going to have this padding applied to it. Obviously, in the real world, you really want to be putting actual CSS classes onto these and not just using the tag names like I'm doing here. But this is enough for now. This is probably the simplest approach just for this demo. So I'm just going to be styling these based on the tag names. So if we just do npm run dev, that will start Vite and it will start it in dev mode. It will give us this localhost URL, which we can open in Chrome. And you can see this localhost URL will take us to our new to-do app. So here you can see we have the Todoist. And I'm going to say buy milk. Add that in. So that's the add component being put in there. And you can see that as I click on these, it will mark them as done. And if I go into the inspect elements on here, you'll be able to see that the ones that I've marked as done have got this line through class on them. And if I unclick that, you'll see on the right-hand side here, this changes from line through to none. So that's coming from our to-do component. We said that when you click on it, it changes that is completed property inside the to-do item. And that's what's controlling this class here. So that's a basic to-do list app. A couple of things to note here. As I said, this app doesn't store the list of items in a database or anything. It's all kept in your browser in memory. It's essentially inside that useState hook inside the component. So if you were to deploy this to the web and log in from another browser, or if you cleared your browser's cache, then all your to-do items will disappear. This is an entirely offline front-end application, basically. If you want me to follow up with how you can store these to-dos on a backend in a database, then let me know in the comment section below. I can show you how to use a basic backend service like Firebase to store these items in the cloud if you like. Just let me know below. And if not, then why not check out the other videos on my channel? I'm here every week with tips, guides, and tutorials to help you on your journey with web development. So until next time, my name's James Sharzov, and I'll see you around.